Hello. So today we're going to have a quick overlook over the Russian equipment, vehicles and such stuff that you will face in the missions. I'm not going in depth in terms of what kind of technical characteristics does these vehicles retain or what kind of history are behind these vehicles. I'm going just to give you the quick information about how and why should you know what are these vehicles, equipment, static emplacements. So let's begin. We will start from the small arms, and these are the most of the small arms that are used by the Russian military, or they were produced in Soviet Union and Russian Federation. Thus, you shall know that they are, in fact, being produced in Russia, but they are not Russian in terms of allegiance to military. Here we see most the most famous automatic rifle in the world, the Kalashnikov. Rightmost is the AKM. It is the автомат Kalashnikov modernizированный, or rather modernized Kalashnikov assault rifle, chambered for 7.62 by 39. It is being phased out in 70s from the use in Soviet army, so you will not see these rifles in the Russian army today. The rifle directly beneath this one, it is the AKMS, the folding version of the AKM designed for paratroopers. Same story, it is phased out from the usage, just like the next weapon. It is the AK-74. So this version is chambered for the 5.45mm by 39mm Soviet cartridge, which is in terms of combat characteristics very similar to 5.56 cartridge of the NATO countries. Two guns directly beneath this one are the AKS-74, the folding version, and the AKS-74U, the carbine version, which in terms of size and mass are rather more like personal defense weapon or submachine gun, not an assault rifle. So only AKS-74U are currently in use by the Russian army, because the main rifle has been changed for AK-74M, or автомат Калашникова образца 1974 года, модернизированный, which retains all features of the sub-modifications of AK-74, such as folding buttstock and its own proprietary mounting system for Soviet, or rather Warsaw-packed optics. Directly beneath the AK-74 is the AK-105. It is the special shortened version for the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Special Forces. So it is not significantly, but still shorter than AK-74 and a bit lighter. And the next generation that has been proved to be the next assault rifle to be issued widely in the army, the AK-12. These AK-12s that we see in Alma, it is the prototype version of AK-12. It is not a serial version. The serial is much more similar to AK-74M than comparing to the AK-12. But still, it is good to know that these rifles are real completely, and they were considered to be a replacement for AK-74M. Here we see the AK-12 chambered for 7.62 by 39, the old Soviet cartridge. Directly beneath it we see the carbine version, the shortened variant, and above we see the RPK-16, which is the light support weapon for the section, because it has a lot of modules unified with AK-12. It is much more simpler in terms of studying, and much more quicker if you want to teach a soldier that knows how to operate AK-12 to operate RPK-16. Above we see the sniper, or rather marksman rifle, the basic SVD sniper rifle, SVDS, the folding variant for the paratrooper, SVU, it is the bullpup version for specially created for the Special Forces and Ministry of Internal Affairs. And to the left we see an Armor 3 vanilla, or rather from the Marksman DLC version. It is a special rifle chambered for 9.3mm cartridge. This rifle was developed as the project to make SVD more lethal at the longer ranges. This project was scrapped, it went nowhere. Here we see two main medium machine guns, or SPMGs or GPMGs. To the left we see the PKM, the original design of the Mikhail Kalashnikov, and to the right we see the PKP, the modernized version with the new colon system for the barrel, which makes barrel non-detachable anymore. It also has the scope mounting on the left side. If we're talking about the special forces, we are going to inevitably talk about the AS-WOW and VSS Vintorez. These are the unicorn type of rifles that are incredibly effective at the ranges up to 300 meters, but further down the range these rifles are practically non-usable, because they are firing only subsonic 9x39mm cartridges, but these cartridges are designed to be able to penetrate standard NATO helmet from the distance of 200 meters. These rifles are integrally suppressed, so they are very hard to spot in terms of gun report. Here we see the pistols of the Soviet and Russian Army and Special Forces. To the right we see the PM, the Pistolet Makarova. It is a baseline pistol for Soviet police, for the Soviet officers. This pistol was and currently is the main service pistol in the Russian police, but in army it is mostly being phased out in favor of MP 443 Grach. The Grach uses a much more powerful cartridge. Instead of 9x18 of PM, it uses 9x19 Russian cartridge. Below the PM we see the 6P9 or BB. This pistol was developed for KGB and GRU as a special silenced pistol. So this one, in terms of noise, is comparable to the British Welrot of the Second World War. Also it uses the same ammunition as the PM, so you might not actually get same results in game. In reality it is much more silent and much harder to spot than PM. Here we see the main Russian army grenade launchers and manpad. So at the bottom we see the RPG-32 or Hashim, developed in the joint effort between Jordan and Russian Federation. A bit above the RPG-32 we see the classic one RPG-7 with PGO-7V scope attached. I don't think that I should talk about this grenade launcher too much. You shall know about it. This is the Russian manpad 9K38 Igla. It is in terms of performance comparable to the Stinger manpad. Here we see two disposable launchers. One to the right with no camouflage pattern. It is the RPG-26. It is a disposable anti-tank launcher which uses heat grenades to destroy any kind of armored vehicle you might face in the field. Well, since it uses the heat grenades, it is pretty much non-usable against the modern MBTs, but against IFVs it is much effective. To the left we see the RSG 2. It uses the same tube as the RPG-26, but instead of heat round it uses the thermobaric round, so it is a very big HE round fired from the same tube. Don't mix them up, because if you fire the RPG-26 standing 50 meters from the target, well, you will not receive any kind of injuries. And if you fire the RSG-26 from the same range, you might be concussed. Here we see the static emplacements. These are the 50 cal machine guns, NSV and COD. This is also COD, but on another mounting, and this is the classic Soviet DSHK. They all are chambered for 12.7 by 108 millimeters round, and they, in terms of performance, are pretty much the same. So it is a 50 cal. You don't want to face them in the open field. This is the AGS-17. This is the grenade machine launch. It is grenade machine gun, chambered for 30mm grenades. It has very high rate of fire, and it has also a nice scope attached. So it is effective up to ranges of 700 meters if you want to attack directly enemy troops, and on the ranges up to 2 kilometers if you use it as a mortar. This is the SPG-9. It is the recoilless anti-tank gun. I don't think that I should introduce it too much. You shall know about it. This is the 9K38 Jigit static mount. If you ever saw the Stinger static mount with the seat, you know the stuff. It is the same concept, but somewhat different in terms of visuals. To the left we see 9K115 Métis, and to the right we see 9K133 Cornet. Métis is a bit older than Cornet, it's all that you shall know. And here we see the ZU-23-2. It is the static 23mm double-barreled anti-air gun. A bit outdated, but still effective against helicopters, infantry and non-armored vehicles. Next stage we see the light personnel transport. In the foreground we see the modern gas Tiger off-road. In terms of concept, it is pretty much the same as the Humvee. It is supplied in 3 variations. We have a baseline variation with no hatch on top. We have 2 hatches to look around, but no main hatch like on the second vehicle. And on the third one we have a double mounted PKM and AGS-17. You saw them a bit before. These are BRDM-2 vehicles. BRDM stands for Боевая разведывательно-дозорная машина, which translates as the Combat Surveillance Vehicle or Combat Scout Vehicle. The baseline version is armed with 14.5mm main machine gun and 7.62 coaxial machine gun. This is the specialized anti-tank version. It is armed with 9K113 Concourse 80GM. If you see these tubes on top, you better let know any crews around you. This is the command vehicle. It has no armament whatsoever, but if you spot this one, you might actually find an officer nearby. And in the back we see the UAS-469. It was the main Soviet off-road transport up until the Tiger replaced it. It comes in all kinds of variations, including soft top, grenade machine gun, heavy machine gun and SPG mounts on top of it. It has no armor whatsoever, and as you might have guessed, if you have a rifle it is more than enough to deal with this kind of vehicle. Now we see the most mispronounced vehicles in the game. These are the BTRs. So in the left we see the BTR-60. It is the oldest Soviet designed APC, well, wheeled APC that was amphibious and had an armored turret on top. This is the version of BTR-60PB, which means that it's amphibious and has a turret. The next one is the BTR-70. Yeah, this one. So the BTR-70 and the BTR-60 are pretty much the same vehicles. They had somewhat different armor structure, but everything else is kept the same. Unlike the BTR-80, the BTR-80 is the latest machine gun armed version of the BTR series. It is armed just like all other BTRs with the 14.5mm main machine gun and 7.62mm coaxial machine gun. The latest version, however, is armed with a 30mm 2A72 automatic gun and has the 7.62mm coaxial machine gun. It also has nice grenade launchers that can shoot small grenades in front of the vehicle. Here we see the airborne armored infantry fighting vehicles: BMD-1, BMD-2, BMD-4 and BMD-4M. All you need to know that these little beauties can be dropped directly from the plane and deployed into the battlefield with no need to land this cargo plane. The BMP-1 and the BMD-1 share the same cannon mount, just like the BMD-2 and BMP-2, and BMD-4 and the BMP-3 share the same gun mounting. BMD-3 was the scrapped project because it was not much reliable than the BMD-2. Here we see the BMP-1. It was the first Soviet infantry fighting vehicle. It was armed with the 73mm main gun and 9M14 ATGM placed directly on top of the gun. In the later versions, in the BMP-1P, P stands for Bosnia, or later, the 9M14 that was mounted on top of the gun was replaced with 9M111 that was placed directly on top of the turret. Here we see some kind of alternative vehicles based on the BMP-1 and BMP-2. This is the Object 681. This vehicle was developed as a replacement for BMP-1 with the better 73mm gun and the 9M113 ATGM launcher, but it was scrapped because the Ministry of Defense said that we need a 30mm gun mounted on the IFV. We need to fight the helicopters now. This vehicle, it is the artillery coordination vehicle. It has no armament except for one 7.62mm machine gun mounted in the turret. And this is the BRM-1. In terms of combat capabilities, it is the same BMP-1, but it has ATGM removed and it has the ground radar added in the back of the turret. Here we see a direct successor to the BMP-1. It is the BMP-2. It is armed with one 30mm gun and an ATGM launcher. Pretty much the standard layout for the Soviet late versions of the infantry fighting vehicles. This is the additionally armored version BMP-2D, just like the BMP-1D. These were deployed in Afghanistan, because in Afghanistan you don't see too much rivers that you need to ford, but you can you face a lot of IEDs, mines, RPGs, so this version was up armored. It lost its ability to swim, but it is much more resilient. Here we see the BMP-2K version. It is a commander version which differentiates itself from the BMP-2 by adding additional radios on top of it. And here we see the later version. It has some nice additional functions added to the fire control system. In terms of combat performance, it is the same as the BMP-2, no difference. Here we see the basic BMP-3. It was the earliest version of this vehicle with the external laser rangefinder, which was later built into the scope. And this is the latest version of the BMP-3. To the left we see the up-armored version, which cannot float, but it is now outfitted with the reactive armor. And to the right we see the basic BMP-3 with FLIR system installed. This is the 2S-25. Some people call it an infantry fighting vehicle, some people call it a self-propelled anti-tank gun, but in fact this is the airborne self-propelled anti-tank gun, because it has no infantry compartment, but it can float. It is armed with 125mm gun, which in terms of performance much similar to T-72 and T-80 main guns. As I mentioned the MBTs, let's go for them. Here we see the very old Soviet design T-34-85, the World War II medium tank. Despite being phased out from the Soviet service in 1945, this tank is in service in a lot of low-tech armies even today, because it is armed with 85mm gun, which can be used, if not against the tanks and armored fighting vehicles, it can be used as an anti-personnel and anti-fortification gun. To the left we see T-55A. It is the first Soviet proper early Cold War era pre-MBT vehicle. It had excellent armor by the time it was created. It had 100mm gun, which was on the T-55A version stabilized. It had night vision sights. The only problem this vehicle had, it had almost no further reserve to be upgraded. Of course, nowadays you can see T-55AM, T-55AMV. These versions are the latest upgrade packages you can see on these vehicles. Unfortunately, in armor we can only see the earlier T-55A with no Bastion anti-GM, with no ERA, with no non-explosive reactive armor attached to it. T-55A was the last Soviet medium tank. The next Soviet main tank was the T-64, which also not in the game, but this vehicle was the base to two families of the nowadays Russian main battle tanks. So here we see the T-72, the cheapest and the most mass-produced MBT in the world. And by MBT I mean it is the proper main battle tank with high caliber gun and composite armor built into its structure. Here we see the earliest version of T-72B. It has no explosive reactive armor. It has old version of the autoloader with no series variant. It was quickly upgraded to T-72B circa 1985. Mostly it differentiates from the T-72B 1984 by addition of Contact 1 ERA. This explosive reactive armor is effective against singular hit shells fired from the low caliber disposable guns, so it can defend the crew and the vehicle from earlier M72 and M3 variants. This is the latest Soviet variation of T-72B. It is the T-72B circa 1989. It has Contact 5 ERA attached. Contact 5 ERA is different from the Contact 1 because Contact 1 is effective only against the hit rounds. Contact 5 is also somewhat effective against APFS DS rounds. So on the turret we see the Contact 5. On the hull we see relict armor. It was the prototype armor in 1989, so I don't know why exactly in the game we see this version with relict armor, but nonetheless this vehicle, just like the T-64, gave birth to two subsequent vehicles. Here we see two latest iterations of T-72B3. These tanks are also outfitted with the Relict ERA. They are also outfitted with the Contact 5 ERA on the turret, and they are armed with the same 125mm gun, but the fire control system is completely different. It now supports the flare system. It now has additional side armor, and these vehicles are coming with an upgraded engine, so it is much more powerful. This is the T-90 tank. It is based on the T-72BU project, but T-72BU was considered a bit redundant, and instead of replacing all old Soviet T-72B with the BU variant, the T-72BU variant was developed into a T-90. It has the soft kill Stora APS system. It has the remote controlled 12.7mm commander turret, and it has the same ERA as the later Soviet T-72B. It is the version of 1992, which has the same basic turret design as the T-72B, but on the more modern 2006 version, the turret has been replaced for the wielded one. It has much better armor protection. It lacks these weak spots that are presented on the cast turret. It also has the same APS system. The thermal sight, commander remote control turret still in place, and this is the latest version of the T-90. This is the T-90AM. It is outfitted with the new ERA. It is outfitted with the Hunter Killer system. Commander turret is now replaced with a 7.62 machine gun, but it has its own flare system. So, the next family of vehicles that were subsequent to the T-64 are the T-80 vehicles. So here we see the basic T-80B variant. These, so here is the T-80, T-80B, and T-80BV. BV stands for Взрывная, explosive reactive armor. These are T-80U. These were considered the most dangerous Soviet main battle tanks by the NATO specialists by the 1985. These are three versions of the T-80U. This is the baseline version of T-80U. This is the T-80UK with the same Stora active protection system that can be found on the T-90. And this is the T-80UM. It has modernized fire control system, and in terms of combat performance it is much similar to T-80 and T-80U and T-80UK. And here we come for the latest Russian main battle tank. It is the T-14 Armata. It features the hard kill Afghanit active protection system. The tubes for these rounds are seen underneath the turret. So this main battle tank, it is outfitted with the newest ERA, newest active protection system, and the main gun, which, as you can see, lacks the bore evacuator, unlike the T-80U and T-90 and T-72, because the turret is not the turret is remotely operated from the crew compartment up here. There is no crew inside the turret whatsoever. Here we move to the indirect fire support units. This is the lightest 82mm 2B14 mortar. This is the 122mm D30 howitzers. Please don't call them an anti-tank gun. They are not an anti-tank guns, they are howitzers. Here we see the self-propelled version of the D30. It is the 2S1 self-propelled howitzers. Just like the most Soviet light vehicles, it can float, so it is amphibious. This is the 152mm 2S3 howitzer. Nothing can be said about it except for its ability to fire nuclear rounds. This is the Soviet-made MLRS BM-21 Grad. It has not the highest caliber possible, just 122mm, but it has 40 rounds ready to fire on command. So, one battery of Grads consists of 4 vehicles. Each vehicle has 40 rounds on ready, so if you piss off the Soviet commander, he can order 160 rounds to be dropped on your position. To the left, we see the Tochka U mobile missile launcher. It can be outfitted with HE, cluster or nuclear warheads. So please don't blow them up if you see them in the fields, but it is highly unlikely. Unfortunately, the RHS did not bother to add any more anti-air assets for the Russian army. So here we see the 2 anti-air assets we now have. It is the truck with the U-23-2 mounted in the back, and on the left we see the Shilka. Both are armed with 23mm guns, but Shilka features the 4-barreled mount and the trucks are only 2-barreled mounted. Now we can go for the Soviet helicopters and jet planes. In terms of helicopters, the Soviet doctrine featured that you have transport helicopters and combat transport helicopters. The transport helicopters are depicted by the Mi-8 helicopters in different modifications, ranging from unarmed baseline Mi-8 and finishing with Mi-8 AMTV version with the 3 mounting points. The combat transport helicopters are depicted by the famous Hein Mi-24 helicopters. They are ranged from the Mi-24D through the Mi-24B, Mi-24V helicopters. This is the Mi-24VT helicopter. I did not actually found any kind of information about it. It seems like it is a baseline Mi-24V with no attachment points for the rocket pods or EV tunes. I don't know why we do this. In terms of attack helicopters, the pure-blooded attack helicopters, Soviet army can either deploy Mi-28N or Ka-52. Mi-28N in terms of combat capabilities very close to H-64 Apache attack helicopter or H-64D longbow. Ka-52 is very similar in terms of combat performance, but it has the Kamov special coaxial main rotor mounting, which makes this helicopter being able to be based on the most of the Russian naval vessels, because it is much more compact than the Mi-28. Here we see the Ka-60. It is the pure transport helicopter that has been developed by the Kamov company, but it is not ordered by the Russian military. I don't know why would they not order this, but it is their own opinion on the topic. Here we see the nice little Chela 1T UAV. It has no armament, but it can spot the targets and guide your artillery shells. Here we see the SU-25. Unfortunately, it is the baseline SU-25 version, not the SM version or SU-25T version. In terms of combat capabilities, it is comparable to the American A-10 Warthog, but it is much smaller and much more agile. Here we see two variants of MiG-29 fighter jet, MiG-29S and MiG-29 SM. The SM version has an ability to use the TV-guided munitions, including the TV-guided bombs. And here we see the Russian 5th generation fighter, the PAK-FA or Su-57. It is the stealth jet fighter comparable to F-22 Raptor or F-35 Lightning II jet fighters, but much more outperforming F-35 in terms of air-to-air capabilities. And here we see the only strategic bomber in the game. It is the Tu-95 SM Bear. It is also able to launch the cruise missiles armed with the nuclear warheads, if you want to have some additional spice in your campaign. So I hope this overview was enough for you to get the general understanding what kind of vehicles you might face in the field and how to differentiate them. If you want me to make the next part going in depth in terms of history or combat capabilities of any kind of vehicles or personal armament you see in this video, please let me know about this. Thank you very much for your time. See you later.